All right, we're back and we're handing out the annual awards of worst landlord of the year. We meet these guys all through the year and we think, how does this happen? And we're going to give you the tips and tricks so it doesn't happen to you whilst we hand out this award. Stay tuned.
I'm the ringleader, so listen up.
Good morning.
To
How
you,
are
how are
you?
you?
Yeah, good. Not to complain, Yes, we're handing out awards today. Landlords of the Year. Bronze, gold, silver
Whoa.
trophy.
Nasty, nasty, nasty. But look, I think the idea is a bit of fun with it. We are often like at our, just got our hands out, our head in our hands, thinking, how does this happen with a landlord? And I think if you share experiences, it can make you older, wiser, faster, stronger. So we want to do that this morning. Um, we even have retold these stories hundreds of times in the last year between amongst ourselves as colleagues. So we wanted to share it with you guys today.
It's true. What may be relevant to us in our property management bubble in the last couple of weeks. Hopefully that will help some people. But this is a repetitive narrative that's been going on for centuries. It's all about private landlords and how vulnerable a private landlord is, particularly in this market where rents are high. Tenants can get desperate for specific rental stock, and the private landlord is, up for the picking for a savvy tenant.
So the award goes to Mrs. Hemmings.
Mrs. Hemmings, yes. So we have a beautiful landlord who has been a private landlord, has been doing a massive cleanup from tenants past, and she's a bit broken, when she came to us, we had a lot of advice. We've steered her in the right direction, but it's like any trauma, when you have a situation that is bad or toxic, or you've had, a bad tenant, it's really hard to get out of that mindset and be able to accept that you made a mistake, as a landlord. So not to rub it in, we relet the property for $1,250. The landlord was only getting $700 previously with the tenant before. That's a lot of money lost. So without dwelling on the past, but it comes down to money. You're paying land tax, you're paying council rates, the cleanup. All of that stuff is an accumulative loss. So basically, we came in, we found a great tenant, we were able to advertise, move on, and just do what an agent would typically do, where a private landlord is looking at emotional, connection with the tenant, whereas it's not emotional when it's money that you've lost for that property.
I guess as a landlord, it's we didn't rent it at a premium. We rented it at a market value, or because we're really good at what we do, maybe just a bit above. Just joking. Um, but we rented it at market value. But the landlord actually did have an idea that market value was higher than what they were asking. I think the lesson from today is there was just so many other the whole situation of, rather than it being purely a business situation, it became a personal and a business situation. And that was really misconstrued and mucked around with in the owner's mind. And they didn't have like a go-to person to say, look, should I not hold my hand? And I've got to say, the amount of cleanups we do for a landlord that we call the self-managed landlord, so someone who it's just them and the tenant, there's no one in between. It's a little bit like, a Google doctor. You can't fix yourself if you're sick on Google. There's so much information out there. There's so much more relevant information that you have to read on the fly. And I think as a property manager, that you need to have that professional in between. But this was big money. This is the thing that really upset me because often I see landlords that can afford the loss. That hate to say that, but whether they got $100 less or $100 more, it actually didn't really change their life. And often I meet landlords that are selling their assets because they weren't renting them at the correct rent and they just put themselves into a hole. This particular lady, Miss Hemmings, was really down and out.
100%. And it was an emotional thing, that the emotional time that it takes. Like, you've got rent arrears, chasing a tenant for money. The whole idea of going to tribunal or NCAT when you are self-managed is a massive head bleep, the idea of all that paperwork that you would have to supply, not knowing whether you're in the right or the wrong legislation wise. And then, it's unfortunate that some of these tenants out there, choose this situation for a reason, because they are manipulative, they know what to do, they know how to get the landlord, the private landlord, because the agent's not there to protect them, and they take the owner for a ride. They stop paying rent, for one. They, you know, ruin the property. They leave rubbish. They don't do anything. They just, it becomes it's like having that housemate that just won't leave. And to try and get that situation remedied, you really do need a professional that's done this before, that's going to be brutal and hard and just get the job done, which is what we do. But at the same time, you can't help but feel sorry, because the intention was always a good one for that landlord, to provide a property for the community, do good by, humanity, all that sort of stuff. But it costs you a lot of money. And at the end of the day, if you can't hold the property because you've done this good deed, it kind of has just unraveled itself anyway. So, we don't charge much to manage your property. And if it's advertising you want to save on, all our social platforms at Novak are free, most of them. We come across thousands of tenants a week. We know how to screen a tenant. We know what to look for. We know what's dodgy. It's a no-brainer. Like, I can't emphasize enough during this journey just how easy it can be to just allow the agent to do what they do and get your property rented at market rent with a good tenant.
Why is a landlord self-managing? Top three reasons.
I think it's an emotional thing as well, not just financial. They think that they may have had a good tenant in the past. I don't need an agent. They just pay me direct, and it's
I hear,
easy.
I hear that all the time. They just pay me direct.
They can just pay me direct. Yeah, exactly. Leave the cash envelope under the doormat. No, can't do that much anymore. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm actually dumbfounded as to why you would, for, what is it, 50, 60, $70 a month management fees,
In
to have
my
to deal with.
in my world, I hear I've got time, so I'll
Mm,
just manage it direct. Um, I'll save the money, so I'll just manage it direct. And my agent sort of calls me for everything anyway, so I may as well just do it myself.
yeah, so maybe I don't want to sound, it's a lonely thing, You know, the tenant's not your friend. They're not your friend. They're not part of your family or inner circle. If anything, you know, turning up there to do maintenance and all sorts of things can bite you badly later. Like, you know, we hear it all the time. Oh, just give me the tenant's number. I'll turn up there and I'll fix it's just a washer. And then come Christmas Day, 12 o'clock, they're calling you in the middle of the night and you're like, why is the tenant calling me? Oh, well, you remember that time you wanted to go and fix the washer and the tenant now has your number and now they're just going to call you every single time, whether you're on holidays, whether you're not on holidays, or you know what, that rent increase that you want, they're going to haggle you down. They're going to say they can't afford it. They're going to call you and not deal with the agent because they have your number direct now and you're not going to get that increase. You're not going to get that market rent.
But equally, on the opposite side, what we actually find is we manage a better relationship. So we actually find that tenants prefer to deal with an agency because there's more of a professional, diplomatic Q&A relationship answer. You know, it's more of a go-to person if there is a problem that can actually find a genuine solution. Sometimes the landlords don't know what the solution is, and they're making stuff up as they go along, and the tenant knows what's going on. Now, last night you sent me a couple of SMSs on this topic today, just as inspiration. You were saying that there's sort of sometimes predatory tenants that are actually looking for not but going through an agency.
100%. They will pick a private rental, whether it be Facebook, Gumtree, whatever it is, word of mouth, and they'll go through that process. One that usually never financial, they can't afford to rent the property thereafter. A lot of them want to sublet if it's a house, so they become the primary tenant and then they get everybody in and they end up living there for free. They've sometimes have criminal backgrounds. They're doing shady things and they will pick a vulnerable private landlord that's not going to screen them because they know they can't rent through an agent because we're going to go through every single thing before they're even offered the property. No tenant ledger, so there's no history of rental payments renting through an agent. That's huge. A private landlord is always going to give you a good reference to get to let a crappy tenant go. They're never usually always like, you know what? Yeah, they were my tenant. They didn't pay rent on time. The place was dirty. Every private landlord I've ever done a reference for a tenant for, they've always said, amazing tenants. I'm sorry to see them go.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
okay. Um,
Anyway,
so
huge
yeah,
message out there to tenants and a huge message out there to landlords. Professionally managed, I think, is, look, obviously we're beneficiaries of that and that we would obviously spruik that, but we just see, over the years it go wrong and we're like, why, how did this happen? So there you go.
tenants also want space between the landlord too, where that space, where that, that lake in the middle. So at the same time, a tenant doesn't want the landlord turning up every time they want to come and have a look at the property either. That, most of our beautiful tenants out there, they prefer a professional approach to their tenancy. So yeah, hopefully that's helped someone today.
Boom, boom. Thank you, legend.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers. Bye.